Hello again, boys and girls. Mr. Campbell here with another lesson, and we are going to talk today about comparing fractions. If there are any teachers out there in YouTube land that are watching this, well, first of all, thank you for watching, and second, we're going to talk about standard 4.nf.2. And I want to start by comparing the fractions 4/6 and 6/8. You can see in this particular equation we don't have like numerators or like denominators, and our goal is to eventually determine which one is either greater than the other, less than the other, or if they are equal to one another. So first thing I want to do is show a model, how we can solve this by using a model. I've made a couple of rectangles here, one that is divided into eighths, the other identically sized divided into sixths. So I can lay these here as such so that they can be side by side. We can compare them very quickly. And if I were to shade in on this rectangle 4 of my sixths, there's 1, 2, 3, and 4, I can compare that with the other rectangle if I shade in 6 of the eighths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. If I compare these side by side, I can see that 6/8 is just slightly larger than 4/6. So already I know that 4/6, if I'm using one of my symbols for the operation of greater than, less than, or equal to, I'm going to use the less than symbol in this case, because 4/6 is less than 6/8. Okay? One thing that's very important to point out here, if you are using this method, you absolutely have to have two identically shaped or identically sized shapes. I hope that makes sense, because if I had a much smaller rectangle and divided that into 6/8 and then used the same rectangle for 4/6, then my eighths on a smaller rectangle would actually come out being less than 4/6 on this size rectangle. I hope that doesn't confuse too many people. But let's take a look at solving this in a different way. So let's say I have my 4/6 and I have 6/8, and again I want to be able to use greater than, less than, or equal to. We already know that it's that the answer in this particular situation is going to be less than, but let's just dive into this a little bit deeper. I want to find a common numerator or a common denominator if I want to compare them mathematically. And I, in this case, want to use a common denominator. I like using denominators. In order to do this, we need to find something, a multiple that 6 and 8 have in common. So let's take a look at the multiples of 6 and the multiples of 8. My multiples of 6 are 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, and it goes on and on. My multiples of 8, 8, 16, 24, 32, and it goes on and on. Now, I see right away that these two sets of multiples do have something in common, and that is the multiple of 24. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two new equivalent fractions that each have a denominator of 24. And now I just have to think to myself, okay, how do I go from eighths to 24ths? So really what I'm asking myself is, what do I multiply 8 times to get 24? Well, 8 times 1 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, 8 times 3 is 24. 8 times 3. And as I've said so many times in class, whatever I do to the denominator, I must do to the numerator. So whatever I do to one, I must do to the other. So that means I have to multiply 6 times 3. 6 times 3 is 18. All right? So I'm done over here on this side of the equation. So 6/8 is equal to 18/24. On the other side of the equation, I need to think to myself, how do I go from 6 to 24? What do I multiply times 6 to get 24? 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 4 is 24. So I'm multiplying 6 times 4. And again, like I just said a moment ago, whatever I do to one, I must do to the other. 4 times 4 is 16. So that tells me that 16/24 is equivalent to 4/6. Now I can make a fair comparison, a very easy comparison. My denominators are the same for my equivalent fractions. They're each 24. So really, I just need to look at my numerators. Which numerator is the larger numerator? Well, the larger numerator belongs to 18/24. Therefore, that tells me 18/24 is larger than 16/24. And if 18/24 is larger than 16/24, then 6/8 must be larger than 4/6. So in this case, the way the equation reads from left to right, 4/6 as compared to 6/8, I must use less than. I hope that makes sense to everyone out there that's watching. That concludes this little lesson on how to compare fractions using either a model or a common denominator. If you have questions, I hope you'll watch the video again and again and again and again. And if you have any further questions, be sure to see me in class. Thank you very much. Have a great day.